Almaguer is in Chicago. He's going to explain just how cold it is.
It's so cold, if you go outside in wet clothes, this is what it looks like in just 4 minutes. So tough, you can't bend it, and you can hear it.
So why is this happening? It's because of a weather system called a polar vortex. But what does that actually mean? Well, at the North Pole, scientists say the melting sea ice and ocean temperatures have caused the walls of jet stream or polar vortex to break open like a dam in places. That's allowed Arctic air to escape, pushing south into the Midwest of America. Let's discuss this a little bit more with Luigi Romolo, a climatologist who joins me now from Minnesota in the US. Good morning to you, Mr. Romolo. Thanks very much for being with us. Now, I can see you're nicely indoors. You look like you're sort of in fairly warm conditions. Just tell us, it's evening where you are. Have you tried leaving the house today? What's it like out there?
It's super cold. I mean, this is about as cold as it can get here in Minnesota. We're experiencing some of the coldest weather temperatures and wind chills that we've experienced in the Midwest. So yeah, I did go outside today, took my dogs out for their bathroom break. So it was cold. I mean, there's no other way to explain it. This is some of the coldest air on the planet.
Meanwhile, we saw a tweet from Donald Trump saying that suggesting rather that these cold temperatures actually suggest that global warming is not happening, that it's fabricated. I just want to check that out with you. What is causing these extremely cold temperatures? Could it be linked to global warming, to rising CO2 levels, for example?
Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the polar vortex is. So it's basically just a dome of cold air that sits on the polar part of our planet. And at the leading edge of that dome of cold air is the polar front. And it rotates counterclockwise, and it basically moves from west to east in a nice wave pattern. But then, for reasons that we don't fully understand, those waves start getting elongated in a north-south pattern, and it brings Arctic outbursts. This cold Arctic air over the pole tilts this dome of cold air towards either the Europe and Asia continent, but right now it's tilted towards Canada and the United States. And so this is some of the coldest air on the planet that's basically sitting over the Midwest. That's why you're seeing temperatures here that are colder than the North Pole. Not surprising that it's colder than the South Pole since they're in summer right now, but the polar vortex isn't anything new. It's always been there. We've known about it for about 70 or 80 years. What's unusual right now is how it's behaving.
Yes, and there are some researchers who say that it's potentially the warming Arctic could be pushing changes in the jet stream, pushing that polar air to areas that it hasn't been before. Could that show a changing weather pattern that is associated with human impact on the environment?
It's possible. It's really difficult to speculate because we really don't fully understand these extreme weather systems. But the silver lining here is that the more often they occur, the more we're going to learn about it. And only then will we be able to speculate how it might be implicated in the whole climate change debate. As a staunch supporter of global emission reduction and climate change awareness, even I can't tell you that it's linked to global warming.
Well, that's really interesting to know. Of course, on the other side of the planet, we've got parts of Australia, or from us at least in Europe, we've got parts of Australia experiencing extremely high temperatures, the opposite end of the spectrum. They've got wildfires, they've got power failures because everyone's trying to use their air conditioning machines. Is that, again, can we see that linked? Are the two at all linked? If you've got extremely cold weather in one part of the planet, does that offset somewhere else with extremely cold weather elsewhere, or are the two utterly unlinked?
Well, there are global connections in our weather, but for the most part, the weather here in the northern hemisphere is pretty much isolated from the weather that far south in the southern hemisphere. These extreme things that we're seeing in the weather, we're seeing more of it, and that is a sign that that it's due to climate change. But again, we're going to have to study these more to really fully understand how they operate to be able to that.
more practically on the kind of immediate, the short term, what are the immediate consequences to humans? I'm thinking of crops, of food supplies, of both these types of weather extremes, be it very, very cold weather or very, very hot weather.
Yeah, I think the real story here is the wind chills, and we're seeing wind chills here in Minnesota as low as minus 55 Celsius, minus 45 in Chicago. Skin freezes in just a few minutes. People need to commute. They take the train. They take the bus. They walk from one place to another. People do need to go outside. And that's the real scare here is people need to take precautions and dress with layers. If you're traveling, make sure you have a survival kit. I think, yeah, I think that's the big story